Can't fix that. I think that that's a little bit, seems like it's a little bit blurry. Probably got some oil on it from when I was working. Let's see. That might be a little better. That's what happens. Lots of oil changes, lots of spark plug tests today on the dyno. The 5.3 liter is still up there, but it's coming off. And tonight, what I want to do, if you guys would like, I've got the 2.2 liter Dodge, and last night I installed all the rings on the pistons, installed the pistons in, and torqued the rods down. So the short block basically is ready. Now I need to install the head tonight. So if you guys want, we'll go over there and you guys can, I don't know, tell me what I'm doing wrong probably. No, I'm gonna go ahead and install the head tonight and we'll get that part of it done. Unfortunately, I don't have the other pieces yet to complete it. Otherwise, I'd like to get that, I could probably get that most of the way done tonight if I had all the pieces. But I can at least get the head and the camshaft on there, and then when I get hopefully all the pieces tomorrow, we can put it the rest of the way together and have it ready to go. Then with Isha's help, we can get it mocked up. I need to go by also tomorrow. I need to get all the parts for it that are down at the machine shop. I also need to go over to McFadden Hardware and go get some hardware for the adapter that I have to mount the bell housing to the dyno. So I got to get a couple specific length bolts and stuff. And once we get those, that will all be ready. But it looks like I've mocked it up already. It looks like all that's going to work. Then what I want to do is get this thing running, and I'm going to get it running NA first. I know it's going to throw all the turbo guys off. What are you doing? Why they don't come like that? It doesn't come without a turbo. Sure it does. They made NA versions too, just not that low compression one. But as I like to do, I want to find out what the thing does NA. In fact, I want to do a lot of testing NA. I want to run both of the cylinder heads. I want to run the bathtub head that this 84 came with. I want to run a swirl head. I want to run different cams through it. I want to run some headers and exhausts. Mostly I want to run the intake manifolds, the 3 different factory intake manifolds, and then I'm sure at some point a Super Richie version. It's going to be adjustable. So we'll do that, but I want to do that NA so that we know before we add boost kind of what's going on. Also, when I run it NA, we're going to run it with a Holley HP management system. We're using a distributor that I modified with and I'd show it to you, but that's just at the machine shop. But I modified it so that it would accept the cam sensor from an LS, so we'll be able to run the Holley, and I'll be able to dial in the air, fuel, and timing. If I can dial in the air, fuel, and timing NA, it will give me a really good idea where these things want to be when I run them under boost, because then obviously if we run a bunch of NA testing, I'm also going to put the turbo on. It's just a fairly easy bolt on. And I'll run this, because this was an 84, this is a non-intercooled draw through the throttle, meaning the throttle body is mounted in front of the turbo. So it will have the throttle body in front of the turbo, which is kind of cool. So we'll do some testing with that, and then naturally it will also get, and we'll turn the boost up, run the 85, it will get an intercooler, all of that stuff. So all of that's down the line. This early one has the small 10mm head bolts, but I'm just using factory replacement bolts on it. It just has a Fel-Pro head gasket. So right now it's nothing special, which is kind of cool because this is the least desirable one with the small head bolts, and it doesn't have an MLS head gasket or any of that stuff. So it will tell us were people blowing these things up because they didn't have any idea what the air, fuel, and timing was. How weak are these bolts and presumably the head gasket and stuff. But we'll find out a lot of information. But when I run it NA, we'll find out what the intake manifolds do. And then when we do the same test under boost, which I will do, we'll find out what those do. And then we can kind of correlate that and go, hey, look, Richard said it's going to do the same thing under boost. And we'll find out if that's actually true. It probably is, at least with the intake manifolds. So what we'll do is we'll wait for some more people to get here, and then we'll go ahead and walk over. We'll go over to where I've got everything set up there. We've got the short block set up. I've got torque wrenches ready to go. The head's all clean and stuff. And everything basically is prepped. All I got to do is drop the head gasket on and then put the head on and put the bolts in and go through the proper torque sequence, which is kind of interesting. and I was so confused that I looked at multiple sources for this thing. Normally, I've run head stock, especially head bolts down, many times. So you can do it either with a torque setting like you do with ARP head bolts or studs, or the normal kind of stuff. A lot of the later stuff is an angle torque. torque to yield stuff. And this is like that. So it gives you an initial torque setting, and then it gives you, at the end, you finish it up with another quarter of a turn, which that's fine. They're not even doing it in degrees. They're just saying, I do it a quarter of a turn, which is fine. So they're just putting stretch in the bolt. But the interesting thing is they tell you to do, I think on the 10 millimeter, it's like 35, 65, then 65 again, and then a quarter of a turn. So I don't know if that second 65, that's why I was confused. I kept looking it up in different places thinking, did they not put that number in right? First of all, 65 foot-pounds seems like a lot for this particular fastener, but the fact that they gave it twice, I don't know if they just want you to check your setting again to make sure it's still doing that, that the bolt didn't somehow lose some tension. Maybe that's what they're trying to do, and then give it the last quarter turn. So we'll do that. We'll go through that procedure and put it on there. We'll see what happens. Today, I ran some good tests. I ran inexpensive oil versus expensive oil, so that was good. That will be very popular. I ran gasketed plugs versus tapered seat plugs, and then different heat range plugs on the LS, so all that will be good stuff. I'm really now, I mean, as much as I love the LS, I'm thinking it's got to be close to 100 pulls in it by now. As much as I love that motor, and it's really growing on me, you know, it's all aluminum. But all of the times that I've drained the oil, we keep seeing stuff still come out of there. The oil still comes out, even though it's like brand new. We put it in, obviously. We only got to run it for a few runs to do this testing. You got to get it up to temperature and stuff. But every time we drain the oil, it looks awful dirty, and there's lots of stuff coming out of it. So I think what we're doing more than anything is kind of cleaning the block inside there. But that's okay. But as much as I like that, I'm really excited about doing the 2.2. I really like boosted stuff, and even on a little motor like this, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to demonstrate a lot of stuff, and I'm sure people are going to argue and complain like everybody does. But it'll be good. I'm most excited in this. I like forced induction stuff, and I really like induction stuff. I like the intake manifold stuff, and I like demonstrating what they do. I like the fact that on the factory ones, there's such a big difference between the original one that came on this motor, particularly the log style manifold, and then the later one-piece and two-piece stuff, which were long runner, which are much more conventional, much more like the thing that you would see in the SRT motors, the later motors, and something that had runner length in it at least to add some much needed torque. And maybe I don't know about the engineers, maybe they didn't want that initially, maybe because I know that they detuned the boost curve on the 2.5 to not bring the torque in as much. Maybe they were trying to limit it for drivetrain stuff, or for to suppress detonation, which they were relying fairly heavily on the knock sensors on these even way back then, which is kind of cool. So I want to see what's going to happen. And then like I said last night, Ben from the car farm, so shout out to Ben and Brian. Ben drove the car after fixing the clutch and was able to make at least 1 gear runs in it, because the shift linkage still isn't right, because the shifter has been changed because they put a 568 trans in it originally when it had the 2.5, and so they had to modify the shifter in the tunnel and stuff. So the cables that are in it right now are not right for the 525 trans, I think is it now, 525 or 523. So those are going to have to be adjusted to get the thing to shift right. But I just wanted to make sure, I wanted him to take it out on the road, which is nice. It's turbo weather. It's like 35 or 40 degrees back there, which is ideal for a turbo combination. So I just wanted him to do, even just having it in 1 gear, doing a first gear or a second gear or a third gear once you finally get it into gear, doing pulls on that just to make sure it wasn't slipping. The new clutch is going in, and they're changing that anyway, but we just, you feel good. I like that he's doing that kind of stuff. I wish that I was there doing it and driving it. And so it could then go to a chassis dyno. He's sending me some injectors, and hopefully I can flow those and just make sure that everything is okay, and before we start thinking seriously about, after the car gets painted and stuff, I'll bring it back here, and we'll do a bunch of chassis dyno testing. But first, it's all stock, so we'll get it all emission certified and stuff, and get it registered and be driving it around, which is the fun part. As much as I love running the stuff on the engine, I know it's a lot easier to do all the testing when we're on the dyno, because you have access to everything. And changing turbos and stuff on that particular vehicle would kind of be a nightmare. I guess maybe taking the whole head off is the answer. But doing that stuff in the car is much more difficult. It's a lot easier on the engine dyno, but I don't get to drive it around. So this will be cool. I actually get to drive it around and take my kids for rides and stuff and go do fun things. So it'll be cool. So what we'll do is, I think we'll head over and let's go ahead and put that, we'll put the cylinder head on. Okay. I'm gonna take you over on your stand. Right now I'm plugged in because my battery was getting low. We'll go back over here. There and there and there and there and there. So we'll get you in an advantageous spot here. So there is our Dodge 2.2 liter, full race. And over here is the cylinder head and head gasket. And you can see we've got that set up over there. So hopefully so that I don't have to get an extension cord, that my phone will cooperate for a while, hopefully. So what we'll do is we'll start out, obviously, head gasket. Make sure it goes the right way. Lucky for me, kind of only goes on one way. That's all good. Now, cylinder head. So for you guys that are wondering, this thing has already been cleaned. I've already done a lot of prep on it. What I'll do is turn around so I'm facing you guys. Hopefully this is going on here correctly. Come on. Okay, where are we lining up at? Do I have this on the wrong side? No, this should be right here. Boom! There we go. Got our head bolts. These are the tiny little 10mm ones. I've already put a little bit of oil on them. I've already put a little bit of oil on the facing of the head. I know that ARP tells you not to do that on their new ones. I've even put a little bit of oil in each one of the holes, only because it looked like they were not cooperating all that much. Oh, there we go. Now she finally sat down. Trying to not be cooperative. Okay, here's our 15. You got that. I gotta grab my gun. See how these go in. I just use the gun to run them down. If I get any resistance, then I stop, and I'll do it with a ratchet just so I can feel it. If there's any oil or anything in there, then I want to make sure you don't hydro that. And probably hard on a block like that. So let's see what you're doing. This one wants to stay up a little bit. Oh, it's just got a little bit of drag to it. So we're just snugging all these down just so they have a little bit of tension on them. And then I can go ahead and, I'm gonna go ahead and raise that up a little bit. See, there we go. Put a little bit of tension on it just so that I can they have enough resistance so when I do the first torque setting, you put the first torque setting on them. A little squinch. So that little squinch is probably about 8 foot-pounds. That one was 9. So, set it up for our first torque setting. Click, click. Click, click. Click, click. Click, click. Getting a lot of click action here. I like the fact that it's all happening at the same spot. I like when they're consistent. You don't want all of them to have like a quarter of a turn and then one of them have half a turn. Something's going on. Nice. Okay. Then we're stepping up to the bigger one. Set that at 65. Okay. Da, da, da. That one doesn't feel good. I think that one has a problem. I'll bet you that one has a problem too. I wonder if both of those are stripped. That one doesn't sound good. Okay, so our poll for tonight will be those two back ones. They wouldn't even get to 65, and they're certainly not going to get to 65 plus a quarter of a turn. Should I run it anyway? That will be the poll for tonight. Let's see. That one got 65. Okay, that one got 65. Well, that's something. The head, this is all stock. The pistons and rods are just stock, reused. The block is stock. Everything is stock on it right now. Tight detail strips and then back it off half a turn. The head is stock. The cam is stock. Everything is just going together, just bone stock. It's just basically a quickie rebuild. I did take it to the machine shop because they had to fix a couple of things. The head was damaged. You guys can look back and see. I've got videos up on that. They had to weld it and surface it. So we're going to run it basically in stock trim. I also have another head over here you can see. That is a swirl head that's all stock and that's ready to go also. So I want to compare those two, but down the line. I'm a little concerned with those bolts. I don't know if it's the stretchiness of the bolt or if because on this motor we did have a problem with when we took this thing apart, it had a broken head bolt. And so I don't know if the block was tapped or what, so we'll have to see. Maybe I have to put, I was originally thinking about drilling this out and putting the 11 millimeter head studs in it. It'll be fine. I mean, we'll probably run it. I'll just turn it more and we'll see what happens. If it blows a head gasket, it blows a head gasket. It's not going to do that until we turn the boost up anyways, and it'll be fine. So there's not very much more I can get done on this because all I have are a few miscellaneous parts. Yeah, I've got some water lines and fittings and sensors and things I can try to put those in. Some of them we may not need for the dyno, but we'll see. So, it's always an adventure. You'd think when you're putting stock stuff in that stock stuff will be just fine. JB welded. It's interesting that you bring that up because the reality is that this guy tried to, just like the guy that tried to silicone the rocker together on the LS, that guy tried to do the same thing with that head bolt. He just tried to glue it in place. And from what I remember, I don't think that works very well. I don't think that that's recommended. I'm going to go ahead and get this plugged in so make sure that we don't. And there we have it. The manifold that will go on it first is the stock 84. I still think that this seems a little fuzzy. Who knows? Maybe I need to clean my glasses too. That'll be better. So yeah, we'll go together with the log manifold on the intake, and it also has a log manifold on the exhaust. So we'll go together with that has very, very little, if any, runner length, and it's which is not going to be ideal, obviously, unless we want to run a lot of RPM. But these things don't run a lot of RPM. So I think they're making power at 5,500 or less, maybe even lower than that, which is surprising given that runner length. But I'm sure that the camshafts are modeled in them. I'm curious to try. They may both slider cams and roller cams on them, so we're going to test that as well. Test a couple of different. We're going to put the NA cam in it because every cam is a turbo cam. So we'll put the NA cam in it and see how that works because it can't work because it has too much overlap. Is this the original motor for the GLH? No, this is one from the yard. This actually came from an 84. My Omni is an 85. Excuse me. That came from a 600 automatic. Auto. So I've got a couple of different turbos that I can run on. I obviously got a bunch of different intercooler and stuff, so that's not going to be a problem either. Let me grab something here. And so we'll put big enough injectors in it that we can run, lots of stuff. We can run E85 on it, and because every turbo motor is going to love running E85. They're really going to respond to that. I can also do more. I can do some water meth tests on it too. Particularly on, we'll run this thing non-intercooled, so I can do some water meth tests on when it's non-intercooled. Yeah, I still haven't gone the quarter turn yet. I need to do that. So somebody remind me. I hate walking away like that. I want to let it sit for a little bit, and then I'm going to retest the 65, and then go a quarter, I guess. Quarter seems like a lot. Seems like we've already got a quarter past where it should have hit 65 on those two back bolts. Just hold together. The other thing I don't like is I don't like putting a turbo motor together and not using MLS gaskets. Water meth and with and without an intercooler. The problem with water meth, and it might not be as much of a problem on this one, is distribution. Maybe it would be better on this. We have to see. 1 liter Mafia is in the house. I have somebody that's contacted me about my 1 liter motor, and so I'm going to take some photos of it and stuff while I'm down here. I think he's putting it in a boat, which would be cool. So I have the original motor that we set the records with, which is, I mean, it sounds impressive, but it's just a stock motor basically. We did do some head porting on it because we were trying to improve fuel mileage. Sean, I will mod the oil pump. I'm going to do it stock first and then do it afterwards probably. How much power will this make? Well, the motor was originally rated at 146 by Dodge, so that's going to be our starting point. My kind of private goal for it initially is to get the motor to make 200 at the stock boost level. So we'll see if that works. I want to see if by putting the GLHS intake manifold on there and an intercooler and E85 and getting the timing right and stuff, and I'm hoping that I can get the thing near 200 the way that we tested on the engine dyno. It'd be interesting to see if that's possible. I'm curious to see what having never run one of these in stock trim, I've never even run one of these on the chassis dyno, which is why I'm excited to see my car, which is essentially a T2 car. I'm excited to see that run on the dyno and just see what it does in stock trim. I want to see what the stock numbers are. So I'm excited to put this up, but I have no reference. So if I put it up there and it makes 100 horsepower, if I run it NA, I don't really know if that's what it's supposed to do. Is it supposed to make more than that? Is it supposed to make less than that? If I put it up there and run the turbo on it and don't run the intercooler and we optimize the air, fuel, and timing, and I run it at the stock boost level, which on this one was 7 pounds, and then they would allow it to go to 9 pounds during this overboost period. If I do that and it makes 140 or 150 horsepower, then I think that's right in the range. If it makes more than that, I'll be happy, because if it makes more than that, then we know when we go, we know that when we put the intercooler and all the other things, that we're just going to get gains. Because, you know, cooler is better. And speaking of cooler, let's see. This turbo is mounted with a valve cover. Can I drain the oil back into the valve cover? Yes. We've done that a few times. I did that on the Atlas 6-cylinder. Mounted the turbo up high enough that we just went back into the valve cover. It makes it easy rather than having to punch a hole in the pan. I didn't do that on the. Normally they run the drain on the Atlas back into the block because there's actually a drain hole that you can drill into, and it works pretty good, I guess. I haven't done that. Now on the Atlas, I also haven't done the oiling mod where you increase the oil flow. Do you have any videos explaining how the dyno works or how do you make, I don't know how the calculations work. I don't know what you mean by calculations. The dyno does all of that. Don't know if I crank those 2 sketchy bolts in anymore, I know. I hate that. They're probably fine. Probably mostly good. I'm gonna go check them and see if they stayed at 65. If they stayed at 65, I'll give them a little bit. Richard, make sure there is no oil in the bolt hole. Why would you not want oil in the bolt hole? What if you have rust in the bolt hole? That's going to change the reading. Have you used the stainless screen oil filters like the Oberg stuff? I have used those in the past. That's way more than I would do on a motor like this. It's lucky that it gets new oil. The head bolts were brand new. Yeah, they were Pioneer or whoever makes them. How do you determine the size of the blow-off valve? I do it based on horsepower. Does it make sense to pull the bolts and inspect them? It probably does. I suspect that it's not the bolts. And I don't think I have any. Oh, I do have another set of factory bolts, or at least I have 9 out of the 10 of them. I know that oil changes the torque number. I realize that. 1300 small block Chevy. I don't know what you mean by that. Can you make 1300 horsepower? Is that your question? I didn't see a horsepower thing after that. If it's a 1300 cc small block, it's probably not good. It's either good or it's not. That's why people are talking about putting oil in there, putting it under the head of the valve. That's why ARP tells you you cannot have oil under the washer, but in the mating surface between the washer and the head, because if you do, you will usually tear the threads out of the block that you're bolting it into. It will hydrolock and crack the block if there's oil in a blind hole. It won't do that. It can only do that if you do it really quickly. If you're trying to torque it in, the oil will actually run back up the thread most times. Don't put too much oil in. Yeah, I don't pour oil in there. It might be going on the dyno next week, I'm hoping. That's my plans. Fingers crossed. Oh, that's because I'm not in live chat here. That's why. Let's see. Live chat. There we go. All the fast turbo guys are running 2.2s. Why would they do that? The 2.5 would make more power. I can't do a poll on my phone. The poll I already asked about is should I let those bolts go? I think everyone's saying that yes, just run it. Blaine's in the house. It is. It's always an adventure. I'm wondering now what other things are going to go. The problem with the nice thing about being in California is that we don't have to worry so much about rust and things. I know when I was back in Ohio that's certainly an issue, trying to take apart stuff that's 30 or 40 years old, and the hoses are rusted, all the hardware is rusted and stuff. The block, everything really has rust on it, and so we don't have that nearly as much out here. So if you get something from the wrecking yard, it's usually still in pretty good shape. You've blown out a couple of bolts on motorcycles. Were they aluminum blocks? Yeah, I'm just going to make sure that they have the torque that they need on them. We'll see. 60 on that fastener, I think 65 should be enough. I don't even do LS stuff at 65, or we've run LS stuff at 65, and it's fine. It's bueno. Blow-off valve sizing for a 1300 small block, big. If you're going to use two of them, then you use two big ones. I would do 60 millimeters on those. Because there's not going to be a penalty for going too big. There will be a penalty for going too small. There's some debate on the 2.2 versus the 2.5. Maybe they're trying to figure out that they can get more RPM with the smaller motor, not because of rod ratio or anything, but mainly probably because of head flow. I haven't seen any sort of professional race engine builder ever pick a smaller motor. Yes, 60 millimeters on each. Overbuilt in the house. Da, 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 da. So see, the people that are watching this, you saw from putting that together that you guys are not the only ones that have issues when you're putting stuff together. It doesn't always go right. Especially this was from 1984. That was a long time ago. Very much so. And it was broken when it came in. Although we did run it on the engine stand, which was very, very cool. Very, very cool. So should we walk back over there and see if it's still at 65 foot-pounds? So that'll be the poll for right now. So we're thinking, yes, I need to go back over there? we've got to go through the whole torque sequence anyway, and we got to go to the second 65. So let's see what happens. If I could do this, will that work? No, not without some angle. I don't like using this extension, but okay. I like that. We like that. So who has their fingers crossed? Come on. Yay. No, no. Oh, you worthless. Yeah, we got some 65. I don't know how much more that one's gonna go. It moved a little bit. It's not good. Because it still needs to go a quarter of a turn now past that. That's the second 65. And the other ones I think will go, but I mean, it'll turn that far. I'm thinking though when I turn it, it's gonna be less than it was. We'll see. Okay. Didn't like that. Seems like I didn't get the right amount under the head there. Ugh. Moving around on me. Boom. I'm done. Winning. We'll see. Maybe it's winning. Seems like it's on there. Seems like it's okay. So the keyway is there, but there's not one in the crank. Maybe that's with a damper. I don't know, we'll have to see. So for tonight, anyway, I'm happy that turned out better than I thought it was going to. That should be fine. That's probably operator error more than anything else. Tell you what, I like lifting that cylinder head up a lot better than doing that kind of nonsense on a big block. The cam's already in the head, yep. It's the factory slider cam that came in the 84, because it's full race. That's actually the good cam in terms of the turbos. It's actually the racy one. Which head bolt failed originally? Actually, I'll have to go look that up. I have it on video. I can't remember now which way the engine was oriented. It's either that one or it's the one diagonal from that one. Probably the one in the corner. I don't think it's that one. I actually think it's either the one opposite that or the one diagonal from that one. I know it can hear me, yeah. I know exactly. I don't ever remember ever driving one of these. I don't think I have. Well, I mean, I've driven one. I've driven mine back when I was at the car farm. Oh, I've run stuff with much less confidence than I have in this. You know, sometimes on the dyno, you just got to do it. Did the last two feel as tight as the others? No. The last one didn't feel the same. And one of them felt like it had more stiction than the others. I think that it didn't have the same amount of oil in it or something, or on the face. Are you gonna, this motor, Skinny, this motor is all stock. So it's gonna start out as a stock, non-intercooled 84. In fact, it's gonna start out less than stock. It's gonna start out as an NA motor. Because you know, you gotta roll all motor first before you get boost. Because you gotta earn it. You don't just get the boost. The 2.2 does not have an interference head. It's a free spinner. Which is nice, you know, if you break a belt. I think it is. I think this one's a non-interference motor. I think all the pistons were down far enough anyways. I didn't get to read your comment about the 2.2 and the 2.5. There's not you wouldn't start a debate on it. I'm interested to hear because I'm not out there in those circles, so. Yeah, most people upgrade to the 11 millimeter heads, but I've never had anybody tell me that they ran the 10 millimeters to the point where they broke the 10 millimeter bolt, because I don't know that anybody's done that. I mean, I'd like to know that somebody did that, but I think that 99% of the people that probably blew them up because they just turned the boost up and didn't do anything else, don't know what the airfield is, don't know what the timing is. I think that there was a lot of that, not particularly with 2.2 owners, but with all turbo owners. If you got a factory turbo motor, I've talked to zillions of guys. Oh yeah, he's going to turn the boost up. I'm like, yeah, but you turn I'm with you, dude. Believe me, you're preaching to the choir. Yeah, turn the boost up. It's going to make more power. But if you just go out and turn the boost up and you don't know what the air, fuel, and timing is, there's a really good chance you could break it. You can do that to an NA motor if you, without boost. It's not good. You got to know. You got to at least have an air fuel meter on there. And the air fuel thing I would be less concerned with, because you have to be, a turbo motor will tolerate a fairly big range of changes in air fuel. And as long as you don't stay in it for a really long time, it's not going to hurt it. But if you miss on timing, it can hurt it immediately. The 7 millimeters aren't known for braking, so I would name an 11 millimeter is better than a 10 millimeter. That's not the question. We know that. But where can you go with a 10 millimeter? Everyone was telling me that years ago that you can't run cast pistons. You can't run 10 pounds of boost with a cast piston. Yeah, oh yeah, you can. In fact, you could run 3 times that much as long as everything else is right. And that's what I want to see. Maybe I put it on there, and at 10 pounds or 15 pounds, it doesn't work because Richard didn't know what he was doing with the head bolts, or these head bolts are too small. That's all good information to find. I just don't know if that's the case. Yeah, Hector's going to be running 3 Honda Civics with spoon motors. Yeah, but he doesn't have a 2.2 Dodge. These are big blocks compared to Hondas. Yeah, I'm all in agreement. I'm not arguing with anybody that's saying that 11 millimeter is a better fastener. It's what that originally was going to happen with that. I was just going to put studs in it so that it would be all ready to go, and then it didn't happen. So now we're going to do what we're going to do. I usually put head studs in almost everything that I run with boost. Would a dual Holley intake fit a 4.8? Do they have a dual quad intake? The tunnel ram you could do, or the high ram you could do that with dual quads on. I've run that many times. Had a TRW torque wrench. I have the one that I put together a lot of motors with is a Harbor Freight one. I'm sure that it's 20 or 25 years old. This one, those are both snap-ons. Those are Westech stuff. So I'm surprised nobody brought up the fact that I was using an extension. I'm interested in seeing if the G-head really makes more power than the swirl head. That'll be a good direct back-to-back test. I've never seen anybody do that. I wasn't able to read your VVT question. There is a Maserati head. It's a 4-valve one. Yeah, you put 7/16 instead of 11 millimeters. But the 11 millimeter, isn't that an LS1? I mean, a LS bolt? Shadow, I didn't see your thing, your service announcement. I did not read it. It goes by so fast. Just like time. Just like dyno days. Midnight's here before you know it. It's all fun and games, and then you can't torque the head bolts. I also have a 2.5. I have it over my storage, which I need to take apart. I'd like to do that while I'm down here. Vizard said he was done with the head, but done porting it, but I don't think they're done with the valve job yet. I know, Casey, as soon as I sell the motor, I'll find a car. But it should have our motor in it already if I find one. There were two 16-valve heads. One was a T3 in the Spirit RT. And the other one was the Maserati head. And I think that there was another weird one, too, that was maybe not in a production car or something. But those are both 4-valve ones. I'm not interested in those. I'm 8-valve for life. Although I almost bought a Spirit RT instead of the Omni. I wanted the Omni, but... Have you played with the 2.3 turbo Ford motors? Yeah, the SVO Mustangs. Yeah, I did lots of stuff with Dave from Tiny Avenger way back in the day. I haven't run one on the engine dyno here, though. I would like to. Biggest horsepower, fastest ET. Are you asking which one of those is better? I think you would need a larger bolt with the same thread pitch. You want to buy an Envoy 5.3 liter? There's lots of 5.3 liters in the wrecking yard. On the 2.3, what was your peak? I think you're misinterpreting what I do here. It's not about making maximum power. That's not what this is. I do testing, so we find out what things do. And I don't build motors to make maximum power. The only time I've ever done that is the Big Bang motor, and even that wasn't anywhere near what it could be. I mean, it had 2,000 horsepower with a turbo on it, but we wanted to find out that was a specific test too. We wanted to find out what the strength limit was of the stock bottom end. So again, even with the SVO, we were just doing tests. What happens when you take off the regular, when you run it without an intercooler? What happens when you use the Mustang intercooler? What happens when you upgrade to the T-Bird intercooler or go to an air-to-water? What happens if we put a 57 millimeter turbo on it? What happens if you put cams in it, all that stuff? We just want to show what things do so people have the information, they can make the right decisions. Have you dynoed a Cathedral Port Dorman truck intake? Yes, it's not anywhere near an LSX RT. In fact, the one that I tested didn't make what a stock truck manifold makes. So that's not a real thing. It's not an LSX RT by any means. There's a guy running 2.3 in the high nines rotor. Yeah, you can make a lot of power with them if you run enough boost on them. It's going to make my SRT at 2.6, but decided more revs. Do you ever come across the 3.1 turbos? I know what they are, and I've seen them, but I've never seen one in a wrecking yard, though. Turbo Joe, I haven't heard that name in a long time. I think that he was doing the 2.3 stuff, right? Wasn't he racing those way back? I think he went fast in those. What is an XUV? The Turbo 3.1 McLarens, yeah. And I did work on the twin dual cam motors too, the 3.4 liters, but non-turbo though. Although I did put a turbo on a 3100 Grand Am, just had the pipe sticking out the hood way back. You can get 220 horsepower from a 2.2 and 250 from a 2.5. Those would be good NA power. It would take a lot to get 100 horsepower per liter out of that. I don't know if does the head flow support that? I think Vizard was saying that it was. I'm thinking it's in the 230 or 240 range, so that should be possible. XUV is an Envoy that turns into a truck. Is that like the didn't Cadillac have one like that too? I can't remember what the name of it was though. I'm sure somebody will remind me. Got a couple more minutes. Avalanche or Envoy? Okay, came with an aluminum 5.3 liter. Is that an LC9 or something that was in there? Any aluminum 5.3 is a definite yes. I mean, at least for the motor. Will a 2.2 turbo make more than a 2.2 NA? How can it not? I mean, the 2.2 NA motor was only rated, even in Shelby version, was only rated at like 107. There are guys making 500 or 600 at the tire with these 8-valve motors, so it's a lot. You just have to. They're running a lot of boost on them. Long tube headers on a turbo will work. Chris, I'm not sure what comparison you're trying to throw at me there. Have you ever seen 14 to 15 PSI actually double the horsepower? Yeah, almost every time. If you're not doing that, then you're not doing something right. Something is off. Either you don't have enough octane in it, and it won't do that with 91 octane, but it will do it with good octane, so you can put the amount of timing that you need in it. Yeah, every big bang motor. In fact, a lot of times on really good motors, like Honda motors, we do more than that. But I've never seen it done on pump gas. So you're gonna buy a Mustang for a daily driver? Mustang Mach-E. You guys got to remind me all the time to do the live thing, especially on the phone. It's different. The setup is different on the phone. Yeah, I know what a Mach-E is, Ford. £15 will double power with intercooling. Yeah, everything has to be right. You have to have a turbo that will support that power level efficiently, an intercooler. You have to have the right octane so you can have enough timing and all that. And then it should be pretty close. I can't do a 2.7 Chrysler Big Bang because they all did that by themselves. I'm curious as to what this thing is going to want in timing. I don't have any idea. I have nothing to base it on. We're going to start out low, and that's really why I want to do. I like doing it NA. Chris, so you're saying run this thing NA and compare it to the original rated turbo numbers? That just doesn't really compare anything because we don't know. I don't know how they derive their rating. I don't know what their test procedure was. This thing should not make 146 horsepower NA when it's stock. I would be really surprised if it does. I'll be surprised if it makes 100 horsepower. With low compression, a log manifold, and especially if we ran the stock turbo exhaust manifold, but I have a factory NA manifold, and I also have a long tube header for it to run it NA, which we will test. We'll see if there's any difference. £15 on a 1600 can make 250 horsepower, which is, you're not going to get 4 times the stock power output. You can't, that's not mathematically possible. It may be 4 times the originally rated power output of a stock motor. Turbocharged motor with no turbo makes like 80 horsepower. Yeah, it's lower compression. And if you run the NA intake manifold also is way better than the Dodge turbo manifold, especially this early one. That's not good. That's not going to make. I mean, maybe it makes a good peak number. I don't know. We'll have to see. I doubt it, but it'll be interesting to see. I also have an NA intake manifold, but that was throttle body injected, so I'd have to figure out a way. Maybe I could adapt a carburetor on there or something, put a 500 CFM carburetor. NA 2.2 power through the log manifold should be your poll on that day. Yeah, we'll see. We'll ask people when I run it what they think it makes. I have to show them what configuration it is. Because what I'll do is set it up with the draw-through factory intake manifold that comes on the turbo, and we'll run that as the baseline, because that has to be the lowest power output. Put some Webers on it. I don't have a Weber manifold for that. And that's not a good motor to try to get NA power out of it. I mean, it's pretty low compression. T, you think this NA motor is going to make 150? I would be ecstatic if that was the case. The Mitsubishi 2.6 in the one in the Starion turbo? Have you ever tested a Grand National? No, not on the engine dyno. I think that they may have had a Cyclone or Typhoon motor here, but I don't think I ever ran it. And that's a 4.3. That's a different one. I've never run a Grand National one. There is a 3.7 liter that uses the big block Ford head. It'll make 200 NA and 1,000 boosted. So that's a lot of boost. Yeah, the Mercruiser deal. It'll make 150 at 8 pounds. Lotus Esprit had the biggest displacement 4-cylinder. I don't think that that's true. Yeah, Porsche had a 3-liter 4-cylinder in the 968. I don't know of anybody that had one bigger than that other than those marine ones. Although I'm sure that there are industrial ones that are big, but not for production cars though. Lotus was a 2.2, yeah, and Lotus also had a 2-liter. I don't know about the Engine Masters. Did they do a nitrous thing? A dry shot and a wet shot? I didn't see it. Yeah, the diesel 4-cylinders probably would be big. And if you look back, they were running big 4-cylinders back in the day too, way back probably in the 20s and 30s. You know, they weren't ever spinning them very fast, but they were big. There was bigness to them. One more minute. Flatheads weren't that big, I don't think. How big was an Offenhauser? IHC had a 3212. Yeah, how big is the Pontiac is, it's 194.5 inches. Yeah, big 4-cylinder turbo diesels. See, you're promising, but not enough to put money on it. Tim, we normally install the FMUs up in the engine compartment by the return line, out of the rail. But they usually give you a big length of hose, but we don't install them back in the back though. Always use the Mopar Performance head gaskets and bolts and never blew a head gasket. That's good. What that tells me is that you had the timing correct on it. Yeah, Ford, that's the nice thing about those electric vehicles. I think you're going to see a transition at some point from electric over to hydrogen. I think that that's the future. I think that there are too many insurmountable issues with the electric stuff. Yeah, I'm pretty certain that this is going to make less than an NA, than the high compression NA1. The NA1 had a lot of things going for it. It has more compression, it has a better camshaft, it has a better intake manifold. It's just got a lot of stuff that's going to equate to some fairly serious power. If this thing gets near 100 horsepower NA, I'll be happy. And it might with a header on it and a 1-piece or 2-piece intake manifold on it. I think that probably will help. And if we put the NA camshaft in it, that would help too. Keith, what's up? I don't know about the 1,000 horsepower Hurricane motor. I haven't seen it. I haven't looked at any specs on it. And on that note, it is time to go. Go put a bag over the 2.2, you know, because it's precious. It's a freshly built motor. It's a race motor. So I need to cover it up to make sure that no more stuff gets in it. And then I'll pick up my stuff tomorrow. And hopefully, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that thing, I'm really excited to get that thing running. I'll be very excited. It's always, when you put anything, even a junkyard motor that you know ran, you still don't know if it still runs. You're hoping that it ran when it came in there, that you don't want somebody to have crashed, but you'd rather have them have crashed and everybody was okay, but the motor was still running, and then we take it out, it works. When you put together a brand new motor, has some brand newish stuff in it, I guess. When you do that, and you know, the first time you put it on there and start it up, you're like, please, all of the things, hopefully I have done my job right by putting it together, but all of the things that are a little suspect, like those bolts, oil pumps and things like that, I'll probably put a new oil pump on it. You just hope that all of those things work. The thing that I do like about these motors, and this is something I found out when I was back with the guys at the car farm, is that you can put the oil pump in and just drive the oil pump, so we can pre-lube the whole motor before we do anything. So I like that. I like getting oil to everything, so that and then I like spinning it over by hand just to feel everything, make sure it's all okay. And then when we put it in there and then the starter engages it and spins it over quickly, then we know that everything is okay. So I want to give it its, you know, send it off with a fighting chance, give it every option to do well, and then when you finally hear it fire up and you're holding your breath for a few seconds while everything is kind of making sure that it's okay, and then when it, you know, you run it, you idle it for a little while and you rev it up, and you go, oh, it seems like it's okay. Start doing the tune on it, at least for the break-in, and because since this has a slider cam, I probably will break it in. I mean, it's a used cam and use slider assemblies, so it should work, but I will break it in a little bit. I mean, it's got new rings in it, I guess, so probably would need to do that. But when you do that and it's running, and then when it starts doing the thing that's supposed to be doing, hey, it's working, it's taking power, it's taking adjustment. When I change the timing, it's changing. When changing the air fuel, it's changing. And that's when things start getting happy. When I know that it's working, like with this 5.3, 100 pulls, changing it, it's all doing what it's supposed to be doing. When it cooperates, everything is great. When it doesn't, it's not. Thank you guys all for watching. I will see you all tomorrow.